Auto sequence start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I live by the old code of the second floor!
Why look for a scientific explanation when you can put blind trust in an invisible Sky Daddy?
Sky Daddy all the way.
Go watch your crappy sitcom! Turn up full volume, why don't you?
Oh, Reed, weird, I can't even get through my couch!
All right, welcome back to the Second Floor Experience, everyone. I'm here with Zach, as always, and we have a very amazing guest, Juls Bindi. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to give you an intro real quick, and then I'm going to ask you about how you grew up, and we'll get into some of these amazing things that you've done. So you founded Zugo Pet in 2013. You launched Zugo Bike in 2017, which provides products like electric bikes and other things. Your Zugo Pet company earned the title in Scholars Book of World Records for being the most viral pet company on the internet, which is crazy. And you were also featured in Shark Tank, where you held the title as the funniest Shark Tank episode ever aired. I can't wait to hear about that. Most importantly, you were the author of the EQ kid book series. I'm guessing EQ stands for like emotional intelligence.
Yes, correct.
Awesome. And then you share all your knowledge and experience on your website, awakenliving.com.
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay.
You're pretty
And
good.
your goal is to help others realize their potential and live their best lives.
Yeah.
And I think you have some more to say on this book as well. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we met you at that event a few weeks ago, and we really just appreciate you being willing to come on. And I'm looking forward to learning more about you. But why don't you just let everyone know who's listening, start us kind of where did you grow up? How'd you grow up? Because I think that the context of that really will help people understand how you got to where you're at right now.
Yeah, thanks for the intro and thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
So happy to drop in
Absolutely,
with you guys because I was able to drop in with you, for I would say a good hour
Yeah.
at the event.
Yeah.
And then I saw you floating around, but you didn't give me the time of day to.
Oh,
You said,
sorry.
"Oh, she wants me on my podcast. Oh, let me talk to her." Just kidding.
There were so many people
Totally
there,
kidding.
so many people to talk to.
Yeah.
Yes, I was born and raised in San Jose and also in Monterey County. We had a city lifestyle growing up in the city, and then my grandmother and grandpa had 70-acre ranch in Monterey County. So I was the city girl, yet let's get dirty and ride around in,
Dang.
yeah,
Best of
in
both worlds. Yeah.
exactly, right? I just wanted to like ride around in all these big tractors and whatnot, taking our chickens, and one day we're playing with the chicken, the next we're eating it. So I'm like vegetarian now, y'all. I'm good with that now. But yeah, so I grew up in San Jose. My father, he was an alcoholic. My mom was a workaholic, and my sister and I, they would say we pretty much raised ourselves. We were very, back in the days, like we were just like the commercial. Do you know where your kid is?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't. You guys are pretty young, but
Mm.
that's like what. Like, do you know where your kid is right now? Like that was us. Leave, come back when the sun goes down, and come back for dinner. That was the way I grew up.
Mm.
So to give the premise of how I was raised, it was more of a fight or flight. Since I remember, since I was 4 years old, my parents, they used to go out and have the most beautiful life and go to operas and plays. And so we'd have a lot of babysitters at night to watch us. And one time they had our neighbor babysit us, who's never babysat us before. He was 16. And that evening, his brother was like one of our closest friends. So one night he put me in a bed, and then I'm like, I don't want to go to sleep. This really cool babysitter is watching me. I'm like, I want to go play with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk into him molesting my sister when I was 4. And I remember everything that was like I'm awake. Like, we all have those moments where like, I'm awake. And I saw her sitting there, laying down, crying. I'm not going to get into details
Sure.
because I don't want this, to trigger anybody. But I was the one that spoke up for my sister. And when I told my parents when they came home, that was my first interaction with police officers.
Mm.
And they're like, "Oh, I love your fairy wallpaper." And I'm like, "Tell me like what's going, like what happened and like how are you feeling?" And I just remember dropping in. But I remember that I still got to see that boy grow up next to us. So every single day we would see him and still play with his brother. And it was like a thing that we don't talk about. It was the family secret,
Mm.
the thing that we don't mention. We know that happened. It happened, but we didn't talk about it. So I always grew up thinking like, like, what do we talk about? What do we not talk about?
Hmm.
So I really feel like my voice was silenced in a way because I spoke up about something and I have no idea what happened because we never talked about it.
Mm.
And after that moment, my sister, she just went downhill. My sister gives me full permission to talk about this stuff. She's my best friend.
Mm.
And she went into drugs and a downward spiral, you can say. My father was very abusive mentally, emotionally, physically to me. He doesn't remember anything. He passed away in 2019. I had a beautiful clearing conversation with him before he passed. He lived with me actually for 8 months before he passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. He turned out to be an amazing grandfather. He was a crap father. He was an amazing grandpa because he was sober for the last 10 years of his life. And that's another story. Yeah. And so my dad, I didn't know if he was going to come home and kiss me or hit me
Mm.
or verbally abuse me or tell me that I'm beautiful. And so for the longest time, I didn't really feel like I belonged in this body. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I feel like I didn't belong. Like, those awkward people that walk around, like, I don't know what to do with my body, like my hands, my arms, like you're walking around, it's like, that was me. Zero confidence. I have a voice and I was so scared to be seen, heard, because I felt everything I said was just going to be ignored or dismissed or put down. So that was my upbringing. My mom, though, amazing woman, workaholic though. She was constantly working, driving from Oakland, from San Jose every single day because she just wanted to make sure we had a really good upbringing, beautiful house, Almaden Valley in San Jose. It was great. And she worked so hard so she can stay home on Fridays. So she had like a Monday, Thursday type of work environment. And then she stayed with us Friday so she can take us to school and do her things. But still I remember my memory of her is sitting on the computer. And she and my dad were just, I didn't see any affection. I didn't see connection. I just remember my dad passed out. I passed out sometimes on the floor.
Mm.
I still remember this one time I woke up and my mom was like, come on, get up. I can't like lift you. And he was just passed out in our front yard. And my mom was trying to drag him in. I'm just sitting there watching like, is he okay? Like, it was just a normal thing for me.
Mm.
But yeah, that was my upbringing. Yeah.
Did you say that you got your drive from your mom?
You can say that. I think I got my drive from my mom, but my hustle from my dad, because he was constantly trying to create a new way of income, or because he'd always get fired from his jobs. Exception, he finally found a job that he retired from. Of course, it's insurance, and everybody drank. Everyone played golf, and so like it was his dream job. Because nobody would fire him because his boss was an alcoholic that loved playing golf. Like, whoa, best friends, buddies for life. So he didn't get fired from that one. He even actually got fired from a liquor company.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. Oh, Dad. Yay.
So, okay, you mentioned something right there. What's the distinction between hustle and drive?
I think drive, you have more purpose. You're more purpose driven. I think a hustle is just trying to make a quick buck and not really something that you're purpose driven and saying like, hey, I'm driven to continue working here, or I love working here. It's like a drive that you're fiending and you actually have more purpose. But I look at it that way. It could be defined in so many different ways for different people, but drive versus hustle, if you're going to compare the two, a hustle is how can I quickly make a buck to survive, and drive, I'm driven to do a certain, like these books. I'm driven to get these books out. I'm driven to get my purpose out. You guys are driven to make an impact and, tell people stories. And, you guys have like, yeah, what do you think?
I agree. I think that's a great definition of the two. I think drive carries you longer. It seems like people when they hustle, it's just for a surface level, maybe like a surface level reason. For your dad, it was survival, but I mean, like as in just to make a quick buck, like you said. So what happened after that? Like through high school, did you go to college? What was that like?
Ooh, high school, middle school, elementary school. My sister and I, we were victims. Hi, I'm a recovering victim. And I was bullied in school, got beat up at school, got into fights. I suspended. I mean, I didn't like myself. I looked in the mirror and I would just cry, like I'm so ugly. I'm just people don't like me, and like I don't like myself. And it really reflected on who I hung around. I hung around gang members. They were my friends. They were people that I can relate to, ironically. You know, it was interesting. You know, most of my friends were in gangs. Like I was in Valley girl that loved going to the bad side of town because I felt they loved me. I felt they cared for me. And those are the people I related to. Like my sister, when I was 13, she tried to murder me. She was arrested for trying to kill me. And
Wow.
yeah, she was on drugs, and she said she wasn't on drugs when that happened. But we didn't get along. We fought all the time. And yeah, so, you know, but again, now she's my best friend. She's been sober. She's amazing. She's my best friend. I don't go a day without talking to her.
Wow.
And yeah, so you can say I've mastered the skill of forgiveness and love and appreciation and growth and EQ. EQ.
So you also said that you grew up going to a ranch, right? And that was owned by your grandparents?
hmm
How,
Yeah.
how was that experience going over there compared to at home? Like, was it different there at all, or?
That's a really good question. My grandma was also an alcoholic,
Hmm.
so it was familiar. It didn't really, my dad and my grandma were drinking buddies.
Dang.
They were drinking buddies. Yeah, that's how they bonded. When I would go to the ranch, I was connected with nature.
Mhm.
We had 70 acres. I'd walk around. I would just do my own thing. I had most wildest imagination you can possibly imagine. Like I was wild imagination. And I felt free there. I feel like I can breathe. And the ranch is where I was actually left alone, where I didn't hear everyone else's voices hassling me, telling me I get to do something or be somewhere. And it was more freedom for me. And we had to sell that ranch. The whole thing burned down in 2021 during
Oh, no.
the fires. All my childhood memories were burnt and is gone, which is actually also a blessing because now I have a very clean mindset. Is I don't hang on to things. Like I'm not attached to things anymore. I'm attached to people, you know, connection, community. But I ended up moving out of San Jose to moving with my grandparents when I turned 18 because I wanted to get out of my house so bad. I'd get away from my father. And so my grandpa was dying of Alzheimer's. He had it for 10 years. So I wanted to go support my grandma and live with her for a while. And I was there when my grandpa passed away. And my grandma and I were drinking buddies for a little bit. Or margarita. Oh, margarita nights was so much fun. I don't drink now. I've been alcohol free since 2012. But
Dang,
yeah.
that's a long time.
Yeah. And I like coffee when people don't knock it over.
Me too. Yeah.
He knocked over my
Coffee's good,
coffee when I first arrived.
Literally, as she walked in the door, things happen, you know?
Yeah.
We're not going to cry over spilled coffee, though.
Yeah.
Never.
Okay, so fill me in on from that point to getting to founding your first company in 2013. What was that? What was that process like?
Well, the first company I founded was more of branding myself with massage therapy. So I was a massage therapist at the Stars in Los Angeles for I'd say 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for 15 years.
Dang.
And I would work on so many people. I mean, anyone that you see on TV, if there were, you know, NFL players or they're famous singers or people you see on TV, like, I mean, every single movie I've probably seen them naked on my table. There's actually a rolling joke. You know, one of my clients went to the Oscars, and like, I'm feeling so good. And like, yeah, me too. I just got a great massage. Like, oh, not as good as my massage therapist. Like, no, no, mine's the best. Like, well, I use Juls Bindi. Like, I use Juls Bindi. So they came back to me and they're
What?
like, "You're so famous, celebrities name drop you." So it was that was kind of the thing. That was
That's
the running
crazy.
joke. Yeah. But I also worked for, I don't know if you know Molly Bloom.
Mm.
She did this movie called Molly's Game. It's a high end poker game, and I used to do her her
Hmm.
games. I would do them in Los Angeles and fly to New York on occasion with her to do those games.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
and that's technically the first company I started, and I did all of that money, that all the money I made for that, I invested in real estate and gold and silver, and I was listening to the guys that played the poker games, and I was like,
Hmm.
margining, leveraging, what's that? Okay, real estate, okay, REOs, tax defaulted properties, what is that? And I would just go home and I would just research and study, like, oh, rich man, poor, like, rich
Rich
dad,
Dad
poor
Poor
dad,
Dad, yeah.
like, what's like, then I'd start going to
Mhm.
conventions and flying around the US and just trying to drop into like what this is. And so I started investing in real estate and started, learning about this stuff by just listening to what these very uber wealthy people were doing. And like, that's how I learned about a lot of my investments and all that stuff. So I
Wow.
was more of like a little undercover spy for myself to get like
Yeah.
a quick education on fun little things like that.
Wow.
Wow.
Jeez. So I think that's really interesting because a lot of people may look at success or your success and see that like, oh, you just kind of walked into this, but to be a massage therapist for 15 years and constantly be figuring things out one step at a time, that like without that and saving up money the whole time to be able to invest in these different things, you probably wouldn't have been able to start Zugo Pet in 2013, right?
Correct. I used my massage money in order to do that.
Wow.
I put all my massage money into Zugo Pets. Uh, I networked like a crazy woman, and I had a lot of support. You know, I was very cautious of who I would select to be clients and be on my table. Um, Again, it goes back to this My Body, My Rules, the first book that I wrote with EQ Kid Books. My body, my rules. It's like I can tell you that since when I was a child, when I saw what happened to my sister and was a part of that, I cannot tell you how many times that I have actually been sexually assaulted. I can't even count.
Hmm.
It's been that it happens a lot more than what men actually think what happened to women.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of women can also agree that a sexual assault can be like you're on a date with a guy and he grabs you and you're just like, whoa, wait a second, like that's assault. Or if they touch your skin or whatever, it's like they it's it goes it's a very sticky boundary. Now it's kind of like I've had clients that have said, hey, do happy endings, I'll give you an extra $500. And it's like, no, that's not what I do. And then there's some clients that don't take no for an answer,
Hmm.
such as Harvey Weinstein was one of them. So
Mhm.
it's also another my body, my rules thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Wow. And so could you just speak to maybe the people who are in that space of they have maybe their first profession outside of college or they're in their 20s or whatever, and they have their sights set on bigger things, maybe a business, a career, a book, or whatever, but they feel like it's so far away or they don't feel like they can maybe get to that. Could you sort of speak to what it was like for you when you were in that grind of just figuring things out that you had no idea about?
You just get curious. You just get to get curious. You know, they all have tools I did not have then. They have ChatGPT. I mean,
Yeah. That's
oh
wow.
my
Crazy.
gosh. If I had ChatGPT when I first started with ZugoPet, I mean, I would have had a multi-billion-dollar corporation most likely by now
Hmm.
because I had to grind. I'm like, okay, manufacturing, what is that? Where do I make product? China. Okay, where's that? Like, oh, I get to fly to China and look at manufacturers. How do I do that?
Hmm.
Like, I make a list, contact, people in China, how to hire an interpreter and like to pay for them to come fly out with me or meet me in China to go look at the manufacturers. And then, I mean,
Gosh.
it
Yeah.
was insane what I did. And I'm like, I look back, I'm like, I did that
Hmm.
because I think for so long I've had so many outer body experiences to the point where I'm like, wow, was I numb through that looking back? Because back then I didn't have EQ. I understood manifestation because of The Secret. And I was a big Abraham Hicks fan. I don't know if you know who that is. Yeah. And, Ask and It Is Given. I'm obsessed with that book, one of my
Hmm.
favorite books. Looking back, and I've, not been asked this, and I don't think I've ever spoke out about this. And I feel like I was numb. I was so in the hustle.
Yeah.
I was so in the hustle. I didn't really focus on the drive of what I really wanted to do. I just went to whatever can make me the most money. And then, like, for instance, massage, like, I love it. I'm really good at it. But am I like, I want to be a massage therapist for the rest of my life? No, that was never my drive. I did it because I didn't want to be an actor and model. I didn't want to do that anymore. My mom was like, you have so much potential. Why don't you try doing something else? I'm kidding. She didn't say it like that. Love you, Mom. You're the best. But yeah, I don't know. If for someone who's starting off and doesn't really know where to start, ask ChatGPT. It's like, what do you want to do? I want to do a book. It's a grind. It is a grind. And I still, to this day, don't know how I did it. I just kept doing one step after another step. And it was a lot of martyrism. I mean, I've wasted hundreds of $1,000s on production. I've wasted so much time in a sense to where, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going. I have no idea what I'm doing. But then other people say, how is that a waste of time? Because it got you to where you are. So you can look at it's like a hindsight. So I'm like, well, so it's kind of like, it's the whole circle of where you are now. It was because of all your failing up moments in life to build up that resilience.
Yeah.
I'm really talking this through with you. So I don't even know if any of this is making sense since I've
No,
never
it
been asked
is.
this question.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm just free flowing. I'm like, okay, is this even like, okay, I'm going to analyze this later. Can I have the replay? But yeah,
I think like embracing the grind is what you're saying. It's like there is no way around, and there is no like secret hack. It really is just you have to apply yourself to something, the closest thing you can to what you're interested in, and knowing that you're going to fail and that's okay, but just keep going. Like just keep taking one step in front of the other, and eventually you'll pick your head up and be like, oh my gosh, how did I end up here? I don't know how I ended up here.
every failure gets you closer to your success, because if like, wow, it's like, how many times do you have to sell a product? Like, I'm going to sell you this water. Everyone's going to say no, but I'm going to get one yes eventually. But how much resilience are you how much resilience is it going to take for you to get that yes? That's why a lot of people don't make it in the acting and modeling world, because you get so many no's and they just get beat down.
Yeah. Resilience is key. It's so easy to come across an obstacle and just give up. So easy. And I think it's that drive and having a why, like a reason to keep going, that gets you through those obstacles. So
Yeah, I can use the analogy what we were just talking about before, we started is it's like a frisbee. The wind is pushing against you. You can throw as hard as you want to, but the wind is going to keep pushing it back. And then until that one time, it's just going to hit.
It's going to hit.
it'll hit.
Hit and cause nosebleeds.
There may be blood,
There may be blood.
but
Perfect analogy.
it'll heal.
That's right.
It heals. And with what you just said, it heals. And it's either we're going to talk from open wounds or we're going to talk from scars. And that's the difference with emotional intelligence as well. People either talk from open, gushing wounds, or let's talk from scars. So there's no emotion that's attached. It's more facts-driven responsibility, accountability. And that's what's the most, that's the most important lesson I think I've ever learned in my life, is full accountability and responsibility for everything that's ever happened for you in your life.
Wow. Okay. So you started your company in 2013. You hustled, you grinded, you got it. You networked like crazy. You have all your money saved up. You start it. And then how do you end up on Shark Tank?
Well, there's a couple little different versions we can say with this one. I kept telling my ex-husband and I kept telling my ex-husband, I said, I'm like, I'm going to be a household name. Zugopet's going to be a household name. He's like, sure. So I ended up putting on this YouTube. It's the I am affirmations. And there was this guy, I am strong. I am brave. I am resilient. I am love. I am gratitude. I listened to it for 22 days nonstop. And I kept saying, I'm a household name. Zugopet is a household name. I'm saving dogs' lives in car accidents. I'm this, I am that. And I just kept going. And he literally, I had people laugh at me saying that I'm going to be a household name. And then within 20 or 22 days of listening to that, then I put out a video on social media because I was approached by Business Insider, and they're like, "We love your product. We want to do a video on it." I'm like, "Cool. Here's all my content," and they put this thing together. And then when they released it, they called me immediately, "Jules, we just released it. It has over 2 million views. It's only been 10 minutes." I was like, checked my website really fast. I was like, oh my God. And it just, people from all around the world were either they're laughing at it, they're sharing it, or they're buying it, or they're just sending in death threats. I got a lot of death threats.
Wow.
You're humanizing dogs. And you can actually
What?
Google this. You can do Zugopets Auckland, like PETA type in Auckland, it was Australia. They actually said like how terrible my product was, but then other people were saying this is actually the best thing that's ever happened. And it was like,
Wow.
I was just sitting back. I'm like, okay, you guys can fight over me. It's okay. Like, I'll just watch the show and see what happens. And so I got pretty much over 1 billion views in under a year because I had my whole team. I went from 2 employees to over 20 employees in under a week. And I just I hired. And I couldn't keep up with all the messages. Like we'd have hundreds of thousands of people on our website all at once. And I'm like, I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for it. Yeah, it was
Holy
insane.
cow.
And so then obviously Shark Tank saw the video and they're like, this product is hilarious. We want to get you on Shark Tank. But I still got to go through the application process just as a regular contestant. They don't just say, hey, we want you on, let's put you on. They put you through the whole process as well. And you still don't know if you're going to be on until 2 weeks before they air the show. Then they're like,
What?
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So you get to make sure you have enough product in stock, inventory. They let you know like 2 weeks before. Then you say you're allowed to promote it. This is the only thing you can promote. This is what you can say. This is what you can't say. And they're very, very particular about what you can say publicly about it.
Wow. So what was it like going on the show?
I loved it. So I got Mr. Wonderful. I wanted Mr. Wonderful because I like men that are difficult. I guess that's my that's my forte. Pick difficult men. So I'm kidding. So I saw Mr. Wonderful and I pretty much targeted him because he's the one that's usually the person that's very like mean or direct. And so I flirted with him the whole time. So my Zugopet product, it's, you can actually wear it as well. So I said, would one of you sharks like to wear it? And I look at Mr. Wonderful. I'm like, he's like, fine. He comes up to me. This was not aired, by the way. So this was behind the scenes because I think it was a little bit too flirty for ABC. And so I start putting it on. I'm like, oh, Mr. Wonderful, you're much more fit in person than you look on TV. And Mark Cuban was like, stop kissing ass. And I was like, oh, wait, never mind. It doesn't fit. And they're like, oh. And so the only line they really used with me flirting with him was when he said, so do you sell these around the world? I'm like, yes, we're in over, I think I said like 52 different countries around the world. And he says, what, one in each country? I was like, cute. And then he blushed. And then Lori was like, she called you cute. And then he did not bother me for the rest of the show.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
Dang.
Yeah.
So that I guess that's why it earned like the funniest episode ever, right? Because of your personality.
Once you see, yeah, it was more of the product. And
okay.
yeah, I'm not legally allowed to say what happened for the whole cuts and everything, the way they produced it. But I will say that if you watch this show, I will pay you $100 if you do not laugh or you do not smile.
Answers the question, I think.
Yeah. It's a really good episode. I still get tagged in videos probably like every 3 months I get tagged in like funniest Shark Tank episode, all on social media, TikTok, Instagram. I'm always getting tagged in them, and they play
Dang.
my episode at least once a month. So it's pretty. It's there. It's out
That is
there.
so cool.
Wow.
hmm
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, it was fun.
So when was that? What year was that?
I did that when I was actually pregnant with my daughter Sage when I was on air. That was 2018, and it
Oh.
aired after I gave birth in 2019.
Oh wow. Okay, so you had already started Zugo Bikes by that point then.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so what was that whole process like?
Well, so I'm a burner. I love Burning Man. And I purchased an e-bike that broke down so quickly at Burning Man. And it was like a $2,000 e-bike, $2,500 e-bike. So my ex-husband and I'm like, I wanted a way to be close to him and hold on to him, cuddle with him, and have like a two-seater. And we're like, he's like, you're a master at manufacturing. Like, do you think we can build our own e-bike? I was like, yes, let's do it. It's brilliant. I'm a yes wife. Like, I mean, if my man wants to do something, I'm like, let's go, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole thing with the drive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
someone I care about and love, they want something to do something. I'm like, I'm all the way in. Like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. I'm the yes, let's go, girl. And we did it, and he was like, well, we have to sell 35 bikes of these bikes in order to get our first, container. I was like, easy. So I just made some calls. I'm like, hey, do you guys want to, pre-sell an e-bike that we made? And they're like, sure. Like 21 amp hour, can probably go like 85 miles per per charge. And they're like, yeah, yes. So I sold them at a great deal. We ended up getting our first bikes out in that Burning Man. We tested them, and everyone would come back and say, Jules, we have been here for 6 days and we have not yet charged our e-bike. My friend wants one. My friend's friend wants one. And I'm like, great. So we started on, the 35 bikes, went to, 60 bikes, went to 90 bikes, went to 200 bikes, went to 600, another 600, then went to 1,000, and then went to 2,000, like just containers after containers after containers. And we didn't know if this was going to work, where I was selling my e-bikes on a pet website.
That's awesome.
Zugo Pet
That
was
is
selling
crazy.
Zugo bike things. And so my accountant was like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, we don't either. And so we ended up having, like, we need our brand. We'll call him Zugo. We'll call it Zugo Bike because it was Zugo Pet, Zugo, and Zugo. Where I go, you go, we go, Zugo. So it was great. Cute little ring.
Dang, wow, that works.
Yeah, it does. And for pets and for dog, like for everyone, for everything. And we started a company, and we ended up growing it with under 3 years to over 20 million in revenue. And we just kept going. And that's how Zugo Bike started, was because drive, direction,
Mm.
fun.
Mhm.
What do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do that brings joy into your life every single day, that lights you up?
Mm.
And at that time, it was e-bikes. It was my husband. It was the direction I wanted to take to build, create, manifest, and bring joy to people's life. That's all I cared about.
Wow.
Wow.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That's an incredible story. I think it's difficult to go, when you have one company like that and you have so much success, it's there's a certain term for this, but it's basically like you're blinded by your success and you think that anything that you do next is going to be
Mhm.
successful. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs fall into that. So it's interesting to me how the next thing that you didn't underestimate it. Clearly you didn't make too many mistakes because you were so successful so quickly. So that's interesting to me because most entrepreneurs, I think, have one success and they're like, oh, I got this. Like, I'm invincible almost. Is there something that maybe sticks out to you that you did in particular, or maybe a few things that kept you grounded?
I'm going to correct one thing that you said.
Okay.
We made way too many mistakes. We made more mistakes than you can possibly see. Like, it's over purchasing inventory, hiring the wrong people. I mean, not making time for a relationship and
Mhm.
only focusing on work.
Mm.
I mean, disconnection. It was one of the most horrific times in my life. It was not done. It was not done proper.
Mm.
It wasn't. And
How so?
Oh God, we were green. Like we didn't know what we were doing.
Hmm.
We ended up doing our own fulfillment. We had our own warehouse, and then like we literally we were a warehouse company. We found this. I found this warehouse where we had to hire some people to sell foamant because it was 150 degrees working in there, or at night it was below zero, and so we had to
Holy cow.
foam it, and then we ended up expanding so fast, where then we had to get buy out the other people that were in the other part of the warehouse, and we had over a 5,000 square foot warehouse, and we were only in business for like let's say 19 for only like 2 years. Like we grew so fast, we didn't know what we were doing. Zero clue. Zero clue. Again, you don't need to know what you're doing in order to be successful. And that's why they say that, you're only two. I just heard this I went to a Go Abundance workshop, and they said, I hope I don't butcher this. You're 2 steps away of changing your life and 3 hires away of really making your business succeed.
Interesting.
If I butchered that, apologies. And it was a grind, y'all. Like, I mean, and so how was I humbled? Because I was eating dirt every single day. I was the janitor. I was the single mom. Like I was a mom, I say single mom because, my ex-husband, he would leave to overseas for, when I gave birth, he was gone like, in and out for over 8 months when I first gave birth. So then I was taking care of my dad, I mentioned earlier, with taking him to the VA because his hips were bad. And so I was being a mom and being a daughter and then being an entrepreneur and running all these things. And I was miserable. I was depressed. I was so depressed. I mean, it was terrible.
I think that's the other side that people don't see when they hear people talk about their success, is what it takes.
Yeah. So how was I humbled? I drink humble sauce every single day. It was, I was a sales rep. I was taking calls and literally calling myself a different name on the calls.
So people thought it was a different person.
Some people thought it was a different person because we had 3 people answering phones, and that wasn't enough.
Wow.
So I jumped on the call and would use alias names. So it was tough.
Okay. So that's 2017. You're on Shark Tank. 2018 comes out. 2019. You have your daughter during that time. And so what happens after that?
The big D word. Divorce.
Dun dun
Dun
dun.
dun dun. So I ended up during this time, during the whole, Shark Tank movement and all that, I ended up coming out about Harvey Weinstein. I was one of the first girls to come out about Harvey Weinstein after the New York Times articles came out. And so I came out in 2020, started the Me Too movement. Once the Me Too movement happened after I came out with the 2020 article. And then the day after, the Me Too movement started. So I didn't start the Me Too movement, but I came out before the Me Too movement happened. And so during this process, I was talking, trying to navigate that whole thing, getting calls, trying to get interviews, Time Magazine. Like, I mean, I just said no to all of them. Like, I said what I had to say, and that's it. So now I'm navigating running a business, being a mom, trying to do all these things, trying to be a good wife, trying to be good to everyone exception for myself. And so then I ended up getting into emotional intelligence, and I took a workshop, ALA, and that changed my life. I mean, I started moving out of victim mentality. I was a victim in my marriage, victim to my circumstances, victim to the abuse, victim to the molestation, victim to the sexual assault, victim to everything, like walking, talking victim. It was terrible. It's terrible to be a victim. There's a difference between being a victim, being victimized, being a survivor, and a thriver. It's a huge difference. And what I learned in going through emotional intelligence workshops is that it's a choice. It's definitely a choice. And it starts with forgiveness. I know it sounds forgiveness.
So simple.
So easy.
It's not, it's the process. And it was a battle, I lost my marriage. My marriage was already crumbled. And when we decided we're going to get divorced is when I was going to court with Harvey Weinstein. I took him to the California system with 4 other women, and I was a Jane Doe in that case. And during that time, I was going through divorce, and I took a step down from running Zugo Bike because I was getting temperatures of 103 degrees for whole, I would say 3 months off and on. I had no idea what was going on. It was called
What?
stress. Yeah, I was just sick and my fevers, and I couldn't leave bed, and I was depressed and crying. I was, the old Jules was dying.
Hmm.
She was getting buried because the new one that was about to arrive, that one had to die. She's there. The essence of me is still there, but it's just different. And that's the only way I can explain it. It's different. It's called accountability, responsibility, and authenticity. And during that time, going through the trial, I came out, and my ex-husband was like, he was planning on moving out. And when he moved out, he served me with divorce papers the week he had our daughter. And the next thing you know, my email was shut off, my Zugo Bike email. And I was like, what is happening? Is he kicking me out of my own company? The company that I built with him, I now had 0 access to employees, 0 access to my email. I felt my whole body dropped. My whole body felt like in shock, pure shock, and like literally dropped to the floor shaking. It's like, what's going on? It's like, is he trying to bankrupt the company? Because I went online, and then all of our items were sold out. And then I called somebody. I'm like, hey, have you been going to the shop? And they're like, no, we're told not to come in for the last 2 days. Close the shop. And I was like, what? And then I had these divorce papers in my hands, and I took photos of them and sent them to my mom and my sister. I'm like, is he taking my daughter? Like, is he taking Sage? Like, what's happening? And so she's like, no, this is his divorce paper. I couldn't read anything exception of his name, my name, and her name. I was in complete shock. And then my mom flew out from Colorado because she's never seen me like that before, because I'm a very resilient person.
Mhm.
And I went to full breakdown. And 2 weeks later, I would say over 65 people were fired. He filed bankruptcy. Company was gone. I had over $500,000 my own personal money as a creditor in the bankruptcy court. And there was a lot of people that owed millions of dollars, inventory loans and whatnot. And everything was just shut down. He didn't tell anybody.
What?
Nobody. Maybe he told his family, whatnot, but I didn't know. Nobody knew. Even someone who was a partner with ours didn't know for, I think, till the last 3 days. Yeah, my life as I knew it was starting over. And I had no idea what I was going to do. No income, life savings in the company. I just was confused, scared, stuck. And then 4:00 in the morning, I would say about 2 weeks later, I was like, what do I want to do with my life? I just woke up and I was like, I want to write books. I want to write books. My mom was like, you want to write books? Like emotional intelligence children's books. And I got up and I just started writing. The first book I wrote right here. My Body, My Rules. First one I wrote. And then another book came out, and then another book came out, then another book came out. I'm like, my mom was there just watching me write. She's like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just feeling the push. Like, this is what I know. And at this point, I don't know if I'm probably gonna have you guys delete this part. At this point, I was like, am I going to have my ex-husband determine my daughter's emotional intelligence? And so I wrote these books for my daughter. The first 3 books I wrote for my daughter. So when writing these books, I just kept going and going and going. And I kept asking myself questions like, why are they little animal people? Like, why are just the kids were the only ones that knew the answers and knew what to do? I'm like, what's Harmony Hills? And I just kept asking myself these questions, which I didn't know the answers to. And I just kept writing. And then 13 books came out. And I'm like, I need a designer. So I sketched the first Sage, the bunny character. My daughter's name is Sage. I sketched out the first character. I hired about 5 designers to draw out the first page. And I told them what my vision was. And this one nailed it every single time. She nailed it every single time. And I just cried. I wept. I called her and I was like, I want to hire you for the whole series. I want to do at least 33 of these books. And this is the Harmony Hills collection. So these books came out of one of the most beautiful, rewarding betrayals of my life. I mean, I am so grateful he did this. I am so grateful. Makes me want to cry.
Because you probably wouldn't have done these books.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
You would have just kept going.
Yeah. So these books came from one of the most difficult times in my life, but the most rewarding. And while doing these books, I wanted to find out how do I put them in a trust to make sure, during the divorce, I didn't want my ex-husband to be, those are my books too. So I didn't know, because there was no communication. There was like literally just talk to my lawyers. And so me not having really any money at this point, I had no more, I was cut off of everything. Like everything was cut off. And now I'm living on my life savings. So I'm like, how long am I gonna be able to live on my life savings with the lifestyle that I have? So I ended up talking to this trust attorney, David Goodman. He's my angel. He is my angel. He said, Jules, I used to be a bankruptcy attorney. You have 5 days to place an offer in for Zugo Bike. And we know that you did this with him. And this isn't just his company. Do you want to place an offer? If so, I'll be an investor.
Whoa.
Wow.
And I said, can I give you a day? Can you give me a day in order to see if I really want to move this forward? So I ended up speaking to a friend of mine, and they said, I will be an investor as well. Another person, I will be an investor as well. And then I got enough investors. We placed an offer in before the 5 days were over. And then I was in a bidding war with a person who hid underneath a shell company, may or may not be my ex-husband. We know.
Interesting.
I know. So we ended up in a bidding war in court, and I had enough money to basically get amazing attorneys, amazing lawyers. And David Goodman, my investor, he came with me to court every single day and was just next to me, just like he was my rock. He's my angel. And then we said, the person who is Radius Leads, I feel like they are an insider. Everyone who's an insider, which an insider with the bankruptcy court is, if you had any association with a company that went bankrupt, you have to announce who you are if you're an insider. And then Miracle disappears, no longer in the bidding. And so then I was bidding against my factory. And now my factory, who's building our bikes, I ended up in a bidding war against them. And supposedly they hired my
We can delete that.
they hired my ex-husband, supposedly, which is not confirmed, to work for them as a sales rep in the US to sell our bikes. So I was now up against the factory, who may or may not have hired my ex to bid against me to try to get this company, Zugo, out of my name. And they didn't have enough money, and I outbid them. I relaunched the brand 9 months ago, and it's been an amazing journey, and I'm very thankful I did it. I'm supporting my customers. My customers, it's a lot of love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, because they also feel like it was my fault. But they had no idea that all this was happening. I wasn't going to be pushing blame. I was taking full accountability and responsibility. I'm so sorry this happened. I wish this was not the case. I will support you where I can. I'm so sorry. I wish this wasn't the case. I'll support you where I can. And it was a lot of repairing, a lot of FUs, I'm suing you. And but I took it because I knew it wasn't about me. I was just as angry as they were. I was just as angry and I was just as hurt. And so I can empathize with them of that betrayal they felt, like trusting our brand and buying from us and then disappearing. So I took the responsibility and accountability to take full ownership of what happened and just repair and rebuild. And that's what I've been doing for the past 9 months. So we're not focusing on like really selling as many bikes. I'm focusing on repairing, making sure everyone's bikes that they have are in the proper works. Like they can ride them, they can enjoy it, they can still have that vision I had of fun, excitement, joy, freedom, mobility. And that's what I've been doing the last 9 months with the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a
What
story.
a story.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And guess what? I still care and love for my ex more than I ever have. I mean, I care so much for him. I have nothing but love and gratitude for him. He shows up for our daughter. He's a great dad from what I know of, my daughter loves him. They love each other. I'm so grateful that he did this because I never would have had this made. And I never thought my passion would be an emotional intelligence children's author. And I get so much gratitude out of saying that.
So as we wrap up, what's something that you would like to say, or I guess a better question would be, who is this book for? You said it was for your daughter. And so who would you like to listen and hear about these books that you're putting out?
I love that question. These books are for ages 4 to 12. They're for parents that might have had a similar situation as I had, not knowing your rules for your body, not being able to use your voice and speak up, allowing children to come up with their own solutions and us being there as guides and not people to tell them what to do. This teaches reflective listening. This teaches body autonomy. This teaches us how to work as a team. Because if I know your rules for your body, then I can make sure I can be there for you if you ever need my support. The other books I have, the first one, this is the third one. The first one I wrote, but the third book in the series. The first one I wrote was Welcome to Harmony Hills. It's about divorce. It's about, the dad left or the dad passed away or the family, the dad's no longer in the picture. And it's however the reader reads it. So my whole brand is difficult conversations made easy. And then the other one's Dracula Finds a Home. It's about a dog that has bat wings, that's bullied, that's shooed away, that doesn't like the way he looks. He looks different. He feels different. And Sage, the main character, finds him and brings him into the home. And Dracula does something really bad. And, he's scared, like, oh my God, she's going to abandon me. And it's about forgiveness. It's about welcoming. It's about compassion. And then Manifest the Best Day Ever. That's the fourth book in the series. It's seriously, it's about, a little girl, she hurts herself and she's like, I'm having such a bad day. And she's like, well, guess what? You're allowed to have a bad day. But when you're ready, let me know because you could have the best day ever. You just get to feel it and say it and really believe it. And so it teaches kids about manifestation. Then in My Heart of Emotions, it teaches kids about how big our hearts are and how many emotions our heart can hold, how many emotions our heart can hold at one time. We can hold fear, love, hate, gratitude, frustration, all at the same time. And you can have all those feelings. Like one moment you can be crying, but you're like, I'm done crying. And I'm like, is it weird if I stop crying and I just go play again? It feels like maybe I should still be mad. But no, it's okay. Like you're releasing energy. And what does that look like? Like the breathing rock I wrote. Like, I mean, there's so many different. So this book is basic for anybody who wants their children to learn emotional intelligence through their eyes.
Wow. And where are these available?
They're available at eqkidbooks.com. And I made it into a nonprofit organization. So any person that purchases a book, it's actually tax write-off. And every single book that they purchase, they can write it off and I donate a book to foster care programs, children in need. When I do talks at school. So whenever I'm hired at a school to do public speaking, I give away the free books to the low income students. And because the person that, once again, back when I was 4, the child that molested my sister was a foster care child adopted.
Mm.
So again, full forgiveness of what happened to us, because that child that did that for us gave me empathy for what was his life like before he was adopted. Maybe that's the only way he knew how to give love. Maybe that's the only way he knew to show, like, I love you. But that's how he was raised. And I can't judge a 16-year-old child who did that, because we don't know. I've never lived his life. I don't know what he went through. And I have empathy and sympathy for him if that's the way he feels, that what you can do to a child and not know the results because of like what happened. I just have love for that kid. It's like,
Mhm.
like, what can you do?
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
I have a question. Obviously, with like hearing from your story, you've gone through a lot of trauma and everything, right? So you've talked a lot about forgiveness. So for you, what was the key to learning how to truly forgive people in all those circumstances?
I love that question. Me, trauma? I don't have any trauma.
Well,
Perfect. It's good.
forgiveness can be very difficult, and sometimes even just saying you forgive someone or like trying to forgive, sometimes there's still that bitterness that kind of holds on to you. So what was it that allowed you to release that?
All those people who came into my life that I'm going to say did something to me,
Mm,
that's a victim mentality. Someone did something to me, shaped who I am today. And I can honestly say I finally love myself. So how can I love myself if I don't love them? Because they shaped me for who I am today. So I started there
hmm,
and I moved back. I moved backwards. It's if someone did something now for you, you put yourself in their shoes. What was their life like? What happened to them? Were they abused? Were they hurt? Were they traumatized? Were they sexually assaulted? Were they molested? And if you look at another person's eyes, you can find a little bit of empathy, a little bit. Its example is this. If I have you, if I don't know how much time we have, but if you can tell me a story and I want you to convince me on that story that you are a victim. Seriously, you are a victim. I want you to tell me, like, I'm a victim here, Jules.
Any story, like a
Any
real
story,
story,
real story that
or
where you feel like you are a victim.
I
That
feel like
you,
I feel like a victim today in traffic, trying to get here.
okay, tell me more about that.
Um, yeah, I just felt like, gosh, like I'm trying to be somewhere on time, and this train is slowing me down. Like, how dare they,
And you
right?
don't have any control over that train.
Yeah, I don't have any control over that, but maybe the train driver the conductor has somewhere to be as well, right? Or
You're only telling me
uh,
victim. I want you to be a victim right now.
that's hard.
It's not. It's not. You can put yourself also. Tell me someone.
I'm
How about this? Tell me someone that you're mad at. Who are you mad at? Give me a story. Be a victim.
okay, yeah. I could say, um, past relationships I've been in, uh, I would say that they caused a lot of
Tell me the story.
the story.
I want this.
Okay,
I want a quick story, 3 minutes or less, telling me how you're a victim in a
so
circumstance.
a couple years ago, I dated a girl, and it went really well for a while, and then after a amount of time, we just didn't start seeing things eye to eye, and we got in a lot of arguments, and I felt like because of that situation, I regressed in a lot of areas of my life. And so that was one area where because I felt like I tried really hard to make the relationship work, right? And in a way, I felt like I was a victim of her, I don't know, just like unwillingness to see my perspective, I guess. And yeah, I guess in a way, because of that, I felt a victim because I suffered a lot of like lack of progression. Like everything in my life just started going downhill as far as the way I treat myself, the way I see myself, the way time I would hang out with friends, right? So yeah, that would be one.
So you felt you weren't heard. You felt like you were, you were degressing. You felt your ambitions were going down. You felt you lost your friends. You felt
Yeah.
worthless. You felt like you lost who you were. Is that accurate?
Yes, I would say that. Yeah.
Okay. I would now want you to retell me that story to where you take full ownership and accountability. That now I want you to convince me that you're not a victim.
Okay. So yeah, within that story, I would say, I mean,
Same story. Tell me the same
okay,
story.
yes, okay.
Same story, just how you said it, and now tell me and convince me that you're not a victim.
Okay. So yeah, so within that relationship, I definitely see within myself that there was a lot there were so many times I should have stood up for myself more. There's so many times that I should have been more honest and more clear and I guess really just like stood my ground on what I was passionate about, and I should have been more unwilling to compromise in the areas that were important to me. And that is 100% my fault. So I would say that.
And who has that made you today?
A way better person than I was then.
So aren't you thankful for that relationship?
Absolutely.
Don't you love the fact
Yes.
that you were able to bond with her in that way, that she had a karmic tie to you, that you completed, and you're so thankful that because of her, and every single woman that dates you now should be so grateful for her in that relationship, because you're now more kind, you listen better, you're more attentive, you actually care more, you know how you want to be treated
Right.
because of that beautiful human that did that had that karmic tie with you.
Mm.
That's the first step of forgiveness.
Mm.
Does that support your question?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
The second question, the second story you told made me feel like so much more peaceful. Just like, oh man,
Dude, put me on the spot right
She
there,
did,
dude.
yeah.
But the thing is your body language was like this. And then
Yeah.
it was open. You were open, like, wow, accountability, responsibility. I like this.
Yeah.
And I like you. I'm here because we connected and we bonded. It's just your body language is more open and it was more inviting and loving. But when you say a victim story, you're like this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting correlation, like forgiveness being tied to victimhood mentality and how that can hold you back from being able to release that, right? That bitterness that you have.
victim mentality will always hold you back. And I am still a victim. We are victims every single day. And it depends on how fast you catch it.
Hmm.
If you remember that the work happens every single day, and it's all about now the timing of how fast you get to recalibrate that victim story and take full accountability and ownership. And I'm not saying don't bypass, y'all. Like if you're feeling like a victim, be a victim, but don't stay in it. Don't marinate in it. You can over marinate a steak, right? I don't know. I'm vegetarian. You can over marinate a steak.
Probably.
But what I'm saying is just don't sit in too long, but allow yourself to go through the emotions and the steps, because you can't say, oh, that sucks. Yeah, he stole all my stuff out of my house. He got arrested or he got away. It's like, no, some guy broke into my house and he stole everything. Or it's like, hey, God, yeah, there's this time this guy broke into my house and stole everything. It's like, oh yeah, I had all my stuff stolen from me before. You're like, there's different energies to that. That was victimized, to survivor, to then thriver. It's a different energy that you put out in life. And in order to forgive people, you get to look at the energy you're attaching to every single circumstance that's ever happened to you in your life and start with you. It all starts with you. And that's when you start becoming your full authentic self. And for God knows I am not perfect by any means. I am one of the biggest work in progress that you can ever possibly meet. But I take ownership right away. If I do something that is not in alignment with what my teachings, my practices are, I stop and like, you know what? You are completely correct. I take full responsibility for my reactions. I am so sorry. Can I have a redo? That's where it starts.
Well, make
Thank
sure
you for
get your
sharing that.
book,
Thank you.
My Body, My Rules by Juls Bindi on your website, which is EQKid Kids book.
EQKidBooks.com.
Kidbooks.com.
I think we also bought kids books because
Okay.
people have been putting that in incorrectly. So
Mhm.
we'll hopefully we'll be connecting those domains very soon. Let me text my team.
Yeah, right. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Thank you for being so vulnerable. It takes a
Mhm.
lot of courage. It takes a lot of healing to be able to come on a show like this and be able to tell that story. So I really believe that people that are listening right now have been healed and helped by that story. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Of
Absolutely.
course. Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Second Floor Experience. Peace out.
I want to talk to you. Not now. Later. No, now.